I took the one there. We'll call to order. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God. Roll call.
Mr. Bernard. Here. Mr. Hernandez. Here. Mr. Grady.
Here.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Harden.
I don't think anybody's. We have a motion for the September 13, 2022 regular meeting minutes. We make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 13, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to approve the September 21, 2022 special meeting minutes. Second. Discussion. You know that, I think it's that three of you there. So, but you can read the minutes. If there's any follow-up questions with anybody in our group, feel free to ask us. It's pretty much what I talked about, consistent with what I talked about our last
Yeah.
meeting.
I listened in, but we got to get rid of our tax department.
One part of our. So if there's any,
That was so bad. Oh, God, it was unbelievable. The kids were walkie talkies, so we got better reception.
So if any follow-up questions you have after that? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Sure. Move to approve the addition of 2 full-time police officer positions utilizing uncommitted funding in the fiscal year 23 police department budget, bringing the total head count to 44 sworn officers.
Second.
Motion. The
They in a position to actually do that this year with the difficulty in hiring people.
my understanding is that in order to allow them to hire people, you need to authorize the positions. But I thought when we did the budget, there were some unfilled positions in the 23 budget. They wanted to add 2 more officers, and we said we hold up until we, because I couldn't get anybody in the counties.
Oh,
My question is, when you say it's already within the budget, what does that mean?
within this current year's budget, there are 2 positions that are fully funded, and those officers are not currently being paid. One is on workers' comp due to an injury that occurred on the job. The other is actually unpaid leave due to an injury that occurred while he was on vacation. So the positions are occupied, and they're at the 42. We just have funding within the budget. It's not used.
This is within the.
So that's this current fiscal year. For next year, you would see the increment, but it can be funded. We also have a third officer who's only being paid 75%. He's on military leave, on active duty. The other 25% is funded by the federal government. If we were paying percent, paid back to the federal government. So are you sure? In terms of coverage actively on, yes. They're utilizing overtime of existing officers. This is part of it, is the officers who are out injured. Those positions are filled. The chief can't go out and backfill them in short term. So by expanding this, it gives him an opportunity to put 2 more officers, sworn officers. And I know when the budget came in, there was a question of what are you going to end up with the final numbers? That's why it was written this way to be clear that it would raise 42 to 44 sworn officers, and that would be considered a permanent increase.
No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Move to authorize town manager to reestablish the golf director's position for Kimberlin Golf Course, fill the position no sooner than November 1, 2022. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Exactly. Is this the road position or?
So if I may, 2 years ago, we had the director of golf, and when the person left, I tried to see if we could manage with the current superintendent in addition to his current duties, to do the golf director's job as well. Was supposed to be for an interim time frame, short term, and it's next month it'll be 2 years. So during this period, I've realized it's the current model is unsustainable. You know, both Kevin and I seem to be doing some of the directors' work, getting ready for meetings and planning and interaction with the golf commission, etc. And the second one, it is for a short time, also the blue collar union was on board with management doing some of the blue collar work. And it's not something that they would be agreeable for a long term. Typical managers don't go and do and Jerry Salvin in this case was going in the two. The second one, there are a lot of things that we need to pay attention to at the golf course, not just day-to-day operations, but longer term sustainability. You know, we're thinking about making a destination. Golf Commission had this nice presentation to the town council, a lot of new ideas, a lot of things they want to do. There's nobody to sort of implement those things, right? So we need the full-time body. In addition to that, we're doing a restructuring at how the operations work. Currently, we pay a golf pro a pass about $50,000 that then he turns around and hires the shop staff and the starters, and then covers their payroll and everything. What we don't like about that model, it's about over $1 million of cash transaction collected by a third party, and then they turn it over to the payroll. I want to bring all that under the golf director and have ranges. And the current contract of what it's worth, it's a little bit messy. So for example, we have, we give supplies to the pro, being responsible for cleaning the bathrooms and the stairway and all that. So go figure, right? The place is not clean, somebody didn't give the supplies, it's always in the store. So, but the goal here is to bring all the operations under the golf director and let the pro become a real pro. Give lessons, manage all the tournaments, player development, bring young people in, old people in, get some excitement. He's really good at that. So we want to bring that position back. And what is with the financing? Well, first of all, the way the golf operation works, the ordinance requires us to stay within the revenue that we bring. So that's one. It does not affect the new one. And the second one is bringing in this new structure, the golf cart commission and the range revenue that we're going to the pro will stay with the town with the new agreement and contract. So with all that said, we will be able to hire the director and we'll still have some additional funds to do the things that we want to do.
Yeah, if I may make a couple comments too. I think it's a good idea going in this direction because it's going back to where we were a few years ago. We used to have, the person who is in charge of the acting director of golf right now is actually used to be the foreman of the grounds crew. And he's been elevated to take on those extra duties. His training is in growing grass and chemicals and that kind of stuff. The added responsibilities, having to deal with the budgets and all the rest of it. I've talked to him a number of times. It's not what he wants to do. We've gotten 2 years out of him, saved some money. Golf course made what, 160 1 year, 113 last year or something like that. Oh, a lot of that was due to the fact we didn't have a director. But in some ways, we've suffered because we don't have a director, because there's a lot of things procedurally that are not being done correctly up there. Noticeable to people like me who go to a lot of different golf courses. you know, and probably not so much to, you know, people who are just, you know, once or twice a year visitors. I have to, you know, say that I think Marosha's put a lot of effort into it. And we've had a lot of discussions. He's had a lot of discussions with other people, you know, on the Golf Course Commission, other people. And I think we're going in the right direction. You know, I think it's very important that the town have the responsibility for all of the ancillary people that are working. Because right now, you know, in some cases you have town employees that are being directed by the pro or by, you know, supposedly by Jerry, who's down in the maintenance shed. Well, you know, if you don't see what's going on, you can't tell what's going on sometimes. And I think the whole thing here is to try and pull all these different pieces together, and have everybody up there working for the town, so we know the responsibility direction. You know, if there's a problem, we know who's responsible for it and who's reporting to who. So I think it's good, the direction we should go on.
So I have a question. Was the director in the current year's budget?
No.
So it hasn't been in the budget for 2 years.
That's correct, yeah. Hence, we had a
You just said
getting a stipend.
It's an acting.
You just said you had profit. because-
Well,
Right.
yeah,
That's-
because the position's not been.
And all,
What are you asking for budget for this position?
nothing actually, we just want you to move some money around from one line to another.
Okay, so in next year's budget, that would be an increase of one person for the director then?
It will be an increase, but it'll still be covered under the whole budget, because the whole revenue will cover the
And
expense.
then I increase the revenue to have.
We will because of fees, but we probably.
Well, remember, Rose
Just won't make
mentioned
them
recapture.
Really,
There's two fees, there's two current revenue sources that are being provided to the golf pro. One is 6% of all the cart revenue, and the other is all of the driving range revenue. Both go to the pro today. In the new pro contract, both of those sources of revenue stay with the town. The range is estimated to be 30 to 45,000. Conservatively, which is what has been generated so far. And 6% of cart revenue, you're talking $25,000 to $30,000. So those two alone would add considerably. In addition, the stipend, which is about another $10,000, would go away because that position. would go back.
So
How
what's
much is that offset by increased payments to the pro? New contract, sure he didn't give up all that.
yeah,
Keep at
a
his
slight
current salary.
increase, but
Pardon?
slight increase, but at the
Really?
same time, where we not having the golf director, we were pulling in $113,000 to the bottom line. That could, you know, in addition, we can tap some of that and still stay within the golf budget itself. The previous director was in the $100,000 range, so we filling this at 77.5, so, you know, that's a
Yeah, I
reduction.
mean, I think the benefit. is probably more.
The old one.
Yes.
Probably is that coming from 30.
So what's going to be the salary of the new director next year?
75
With all fringes?
without the here.
But there,
Yeah.
there would be, for instance, that's just the way.
Yeah.
You got other.
Natural for revenue increase here by having a director, who I would imagine. So, well, you know, the one thing I noticed is probably more oversight in this golf course than I've ever seen in my life. That it's really gotten to be a serious thing with the town. And if you guys think this, but, you know, Jerry, you work with those guys, if you think this is what we need in a Roche, it's probably the direction of going.
Yeah, I mean, right now in this last couple of years, the little improvements, starting paint on it, putting flower beds and cleaning up and doing some renovation. I'm there a lot of the time trying to figure out what to do, but the problem is you don't want someone 50 years from now saying, well, you know, Timberland, this is what golfers say, right? Just we built this 50 years ago and nobody's paying attention. You need people paying attention, not just in the season. There's a lot to be done before the season that when you can plan, direct and organize and especially there are activities that you can do think broadly about bringing more revenues in the off season. So those things are not happening right.
You said the town buys cleaning supplies.
Yeah,
Give to the golf pro to clean some
the
of
down,
that.
yeah, just, that's how it's done. That's
Oh, crazy.
it's just crazy. So. I don't know if I could run that.
I'm not a golfer, but that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean,
No kidding.
you know,
That's very, very changing.
All right, so I understand that there will be some offsets to the director's costs. And the only thing I didn't understand was that we did make money the last 2 years. And if you look at this year's budget, we're at break even. You know, so why wouldn't the budget already have us making money before we added the
We
revenue?
made money last couple of
No, no,
years.
but I'm saying the
Right.
current budget year, we're saying a break even position. You know, so, and basically, we haven't spent that kind of cost in the last 2 years, so maybe the costs are a little conservative too. We spent $1,169,000 in FY 22, $1,159,000 in FY 21, and our budget for FY 23 is $1,380,000. So I guess I'm just making a statement. I just don't understand completely, you know, but I was just curious, that's all.
Yeah, there's, and I think that's part of the fact that so much of their budget was left unspent. If you remember, we reprogrammed a bunch of that into equipment this year. You know, they bought a used Kubota, a used dump truck, and one other piece of equipment.
That initial budget didn't have.
It did not.
I'm
And
just trying
and
to.
it just made it easier for us to say, yeah, you could go out and spend because you had a profit. The profit was the unspent monies that were already budgeted. So, I mean, it really was their money. They could have asked us for transfers to, you know, the CNR fund and then bought it from there or whatever. But my point is that the budget management, I have a problem with it too for the last couple of years. And I think that's directly related to the fact that Jerry tries hard, he does a good job at what he does on the course itself, but I think we need someone who's going to spend more time looking at the budget. One of the key items in the budget was, I think it was $46,000 left over on line for starters and rangers. Well, that we didn't see rangers out on the course policing, helping people, moving play along, assisting. Why if, you know, if you had the money, didn't we see them out there? You know, and that is why I think we need the director of ball. And I think we will see a change in some of those things. That's why I was asking Roche before our meeting if they had planned something out to say, okay, if we really had rangers for this much time started with this, do we have a budget for that? And I think when we get the time, that's what we're gonna want to see. You know, and the other thing about always looking at the golf course budget is they run on a different cycle than we do. Our fiscal year reports have half of one golf year and half of another, you know. It's always hard to, when I'm talking to my friends on the golf course commission, they like to talk about seasons, how they do for the season. We look at it on a fiscal year, you know, so it's always, you know, we're always talking two different things.
So my question is, right, motion to approve.
Oh, I think we
Yeah,
did that.
I'm sorry.
Just- Move to approve the transfer of $10,000 from the pro share of part revenue account and $49,040 from the golf pro contractual services account for the department head and related benefit accounts, all in the golf course department imaging.
Second. So, discussion. I'm not sure what it means.
It's moving money from two expenditure accounts that are operational because they're paying the pro. Because the contract with pro will spend much less money. That money is being moved into personnel and the related burdens, social security, Medicare, workers' comp.
Move to approve a fiscal year 23 non-budgeted appropriation of $550,000 from the general fund and assigned fund balance to the fire truck fund and fire truck fund for the purchase of a new fire vehicle.
A second? Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Move to approve a fiscal year 23 non-budgeted appropriation of $250,000 from the general fund and assigned fund balance to personal soccer field improvements account in the capital non-return fund for field renovations.
Second? Second. All in favor?
I have a question, sorry. Is this the sum total of this project, or is this the KLN funding? Or
It's
is it
KLN funding.
Or,
There's currently $193,774 set aside for this. A few years ago, you may recall, there was an athletic improvements bond ordinance. We borrowed some money, but not all of it. Yeah. In looking at this project, I know this is now a second delay, but there are reasons for it. This one was actually delayed till next season. They're gonna save about $40,000 or more by repurposing the dirt that will be dug up with the Skyville Field is done at the high school. Drive and bring it over to Percival to fill in as they have to tear out a lot of the dirt that was in there. You said you have children who have played on the field and you've got roots coming out of the ground. It's a really unsafe place.
It's very.
And this is used for youth soccer as well as middle school soccer, as well as probably many other things. So the combined amount is a little over 443,000, which is a lot of money. I did ask the question of the public ground superintendent, how do you spend $500,000 putting in that beautiful softball field? We've got an open soccer field for 400,000. And the biggest drive, well, there's two big drivers. One is just the sheer size, the sheer size of the field, and we rip it out, put stuff in. And the second is time. Cost of everything from the time that softball field was put into now is way up astronomically. So the attempt to repurpose the sod or the dirt from the Sky Green over there is going to save the town a fair amount of money, just read it in a second.
All in favor?
move to approve fiscal year 23 non-budgeted appropriation of $200,000 for the general fund missing fund balance to the buildings and renovations account in the police station construction fund for the development of detailed architectural plans of the police station renovations.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
So this is, yeah, the search.
This is the architect to do the detail plans. What we saw last time was more high level. We need the detail so that everything can be fine tuned. They can go out to bid. We get bids from the contractor. This is about, had a council meeting last week and they approved this. They estimated about 4 to 5 months. for this to take.
There's sort of a finalized plan.
That's what this will be.
This will make finalized plan. So we have to worry about how much it's gonna cost, whether it needs to go to referendum, and all that stuff. Okay, but that will be after this.
Somebody has to cost out
Yeah, I understand.
the plumbing, the electrical, structural analysis.
Now, is this part put out the bid?
This part, they've actually requested a waiver. They had conditional approval for public building commission to contract with Kuzinski and Humes. Kuzinski and Humes has done numerous studies of that police station. They've been doing this. So the logic behind it is that they are best positioned to step into the lowest possible cost and the highest possible quality when it's still going out to bid. Another architect would be brought in, there would be a catch-up delay, addition potentially cost just the learning curve. So the council gave conditional authority to the Public Building Commission on Thursday to agree to contract conditioned on you approving this month.
So. it's a significant amount that we had. Park books, it's no longer visible. It's gonna be much higher.
No, I wouldn't presume that. This will be a much more refined number, but.
What's going on? What's going down?
That's just-
That's kind of what it was.
My bank account.
Yeah.
Stock portfolio.
There you go.
Stock market.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to approve the appropriation of up to $394,278 from the EDCG supplemental municipal brownfields grant to the municipal brownfields grant account. And an 889 Farmington Ave remediation fund upon execution of the grant by all parties.
Second? Discussion?
What? Yeah. So what exactly is this?
So 889 Farmington Boulevard was sort of the, you remember when Newport came in, there were three pieces, two multi-use buildings, and then there was a residential, 76 market rate apartments. This is the property closest to the train station. The 76 apartments that we built. That property, now known as 55 Steel Boulevard, has contaminated soil. So in going through many years of testing and determining various options, we now have a plan to remediate the property. The plan went out to bid, bids were received back, and the bids came in much higher. This is a request which we have, we call it a head nod from DCD that will get this additional grant. As well as using the balance of money that was obtained from the proceeds of selling 913 and 903 Farmington Ave. So those are the two pieces of property right on Farmington Ave. As well as additional money input from Newport to help with this. To be able to meet the cost plus contingency to do the work. The idea of approving this now is we expect to get the final paperwork within days or weeks. We're not totally certain. So you would be, the request is for you to approve the appropriation of those funds to be executed when the grant agreement is approved by all parties, which would be Rosha's signature, which the council gave him authority to sign last week. DCD and the Attorney General, all of them signed it. Now we actually have a grant, it would be state money that we would be appropriating, not town money. So that project can move forward. And we're asking you now, because once we get that, we'd like to move as quickly as possible going forward.
So basically that grant covers the difference between.
There's $80,000 they wanted interim.
and US.
They wanted they wanted a local match. So the town went back and offered $80,000, 40,000 of which is town money, which is from that, the remaining balance from the proceeds of the sale property, 40,000 from Newport. So it is really a perfect classic public-private partnership to develop. Fair to say, I don't know if there's anyone to add.
Good writer. All in favor? So. Item 5, now some of the response, to the vegetation, with respect to the surplus fund and how they use it. So, guess if there are any questions.
How do you prepay a salary?
Well, it was just that
$145,000 salary, how do you prepay a salary?
basically they spent more than they should have in that area. So basically it's a transfer to accommodate that, over budget condition.
Their argument would be they didn't have a $506,000 overage.
They use it, part of it to offset that category.
I'm just nitpicking, did we ever see actual these line item reductions in their budget when they say they reduced the $1 million or whatever else she said? I mean, like, I remember seeing it's like VMware 3-year contract. It's not a lot of money, but I don't think they actually struck that out of the budget because it was a contractual obligation. Some of these software things are probably contractual obligations. They're spinning it.
I don't know, I won't be able to answer that one now.
No, I know you can't, but I
understand.
But I think it's a little bit small. Whatever, it's gone, so.
Any other question?
And the only other comment is you seem like, make sure you talk to the president of the Board of Education. When did she become the president of the Board of Education? As you know, we had a president of the Board of Education. Maybe you should become the president of the Board of Finance.
I'm okay with chair.
Ruler.
Yeah, I like that.
I think the only point that I made before is that if we had that surplus, and we did appropriate capital for them, with our surplus. Up was before you start using.
Yeah, I was just a little taken back by the fact that
Probably was before you.
Some of
you can't go
the
talk to the director of the finance of the Board of Education without going through her. It's a little insane.
I just see some things here that just, I don't think are expensive. I just would love to see like $6,000 for shelving in the basement. I just can't imagine that. The only other question I had was, one of the sheets that we got was, breakdown of grants, and there's a grant from the town of Cromwell for $81,000. I'm assuming that's for that Main Street program that they have. How many students are coming in from Cromwell? And is that all the total money that Cromwell gives us for that program?
Sorry.
Okay, well, that give you something to do. Not that you don't have a lot to cover. I'm just curious. I mean, it seems to me that, if they're sending 20 students and they're paying $81,000 a year for services, that's a pretty good deal.
Want to make sure when they service.
I believe with Cromwell, it was the ones that were Main Street, it's the ones that we would have had otherwise send out special programs. So we started a program here, and I'm just curious, is there 5 students coming from Cromwell, or is there 20
We
students?
can get that information, because I know there was some kind of share arrangement.
Yeah.
That they agreed upon.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I forgot what they did.
Well, we have a shared arrangement where Rocky will be and another one to arrange, and they don't pay anything.
We could-
So that's, I'm wondering if that's not kind of shared arrangement too.
We can get that information, so we'll take it as an action. Questions?
Can you simply revisit? Yes. Sorry,
We want to.
just a point of education, just revisit this, the finances.
The year-end spending or their finances in general?
The finances again. Like I see a lot of
So-
things here.
So we get it, we're talking about their monthly update.
Yeah, like what they said, what we get from you, right? Yeah, so I'm saying things like. I get it, the licenses, the cybersecurity and all those things, but. Why are we not buying that as a time? Like, as our IT department is buying walls or buying that in schools, why are they going out themselves and buying these things?
You mean like, why does the general government budget give to the school?
What I'm saying was, why isn't our IT guys here doing this for them? Because I can see like, security link, class link, so those. I'm sure all the iMac purchases, everything, they'll have their own thing. But I'm seeing things here like. I need to get these ones. It doesn't make sense.
Why don't we do this, really raise something? Why don't you sit down, why don't you sit down with, why don't you sit down with your finance person? And have a discussion with them, that may help a little more, from my perspective. I mean, we did talk about a while ago. That the IT department would eventually be one IT department where, things would be, combined, but we never really went too far with it.
Yeah, I mean, town has 2 people, would have been probably got. Doesn't my whole.
More of an integrated process.
I mean, the IT functions between the two are really quite different. The IT department of the Board of Ed spends a considerable amount of time setting up and servicing the platforms and ensuring that operations all throughout the day function. That is a very high priority for all of the IT folks. I would think that maybe the Board of Ed downstairs is more similar to the town, in other words, more traditional clerical business type of function. A number of these items and a great deal of the focus of budget dollars are dedicated towards classroom activities. They could be for the students, they could be for the teachers, interventionists, parents, others. So that's a big part of it, is many of them doing there. I will say that there is some collaboration as well. Number one, cybersecurity, which is an expensive, albeit critical piece. The town and Board of Ed have worked collectively, the insurance carrier, as well as implementing many of the initiatives to protect the data, whether it be students, teachers, files, town information, as well as some of the hardware and infrastructure. There is collaboration. Let's say it can be better, probably all collaborate better. There is.
Like, right on the nose.
Sure. We'll quickly through a few things. Revenues are up a little bit as a percent of budget, which is last year. Biggest single driver of that continues to be interest. We continue to see substantially better interest earnings. There was a point about the middle of last week where the state treasurer's short-term investment fund actually broke 3% on interest. We had budgeted 0.2. Obviously, the multiple Fed raises had an impact on that. I showed you the chart last meeting about it. Given the latest results this week and the anticipated increases, I would expect that number to continue to rise. So you see that in the RNOs later on as well. And I would expect that to continue at this point in the preliminary budgeting that we're doing. That continues into next year's budget, which will help next year's budget considerably. Expenditures are down a little bit from last year. One of the biggest drivers of that is by this time last year, we had put over $5 million into the pension plan. So we appropriated and then spent a considerable amount of money, which sort of skewed the results. Fortunately, we don't have to do that this year. The tax receipts are in line as a percent of the budget with prior year, which is good news because last fiscal year was a good year, continuing with what we've seen. Tax office continues to do a very good job that way. Health insurance and general insurance, Gary mentioned this last time, we continue to be in a good position in both of those areas. Pension fund, I am waiting, it should be later this month when I will get the latest liability numbers. I will tell you that I expect the funding of the DB plan that we see at 42.3%. The GASB report I received where ACFR has that more than 60% funded. So I'm expecting our pension plan to be in a much better position. Biggest driver of that obviously is interest rates. So we haven't put a whole lot of additional money into it, but we've weathered the storm of exceptionally low interest rates, which drove that liability up. I think the pension for the first time is going to be in a good position, assuming it comes in that way. For the first time in 6 years, I anticipate the fund to fund the payouts. You recall that each year we put $185,000 to pay the monthly annuitants if the fund couldn't support itself. I anticipate taking that out, and it was always funded with fund balance, so I anticipate not using that as well in the budget. So it's either something to leave in fund balance or elsewhere. But I think the fund is at a point now where it can actually sustain those payouts, which is good.
Just another thing.
Yeah.
I know that you were having a meeting before you came in, and we did have a meeting to discuss the police pension. Find pension plan for the police. We're working on that. I think there's still more to be done, but the intent was we came up with a framework that we want to present, to the police union. And we eventually have to give it, or actually come to the board of finance, but it's just an initial step to say, here's what we think we can go with it.
You want to mention the 25th?
So there's going to be a meeting. It's going to be town council, board of finance. It's going to invite all the police union to show them what the framework is. And we'll get you guys a copy of what that framework looks like and so forth.
Maybe it's a joint meeting with Zoom, so we can try to maximize participation. The evening looks like probably 6 o'clock. on the Tuesday, the 25th, so 2 weeks from tonight. Hopefully that works for everyone. Mark has joined, but it will work, especially with the Zoom. So, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, except for the folks in the ad hoc committee, the members of Board of Finance and Council have never seen this. So we're not asking for any approval, this is just sharing the base framework, so to say. And then let people absorb it, go back and think about it, and then perhaps come back with, I'm sure the police will have other thoughts on what they might want. So.
Yeah, we basically, Board of Finance basically doesn't have. So it's council. The current school. But we can only fund it or not.
That's a personnel thing anyway, so. Under our thing.
RNOs, the only thing I will mention is when we met last time, we still have the county portion of the ARPA money, the cash and distributed by the feds. We did receive that money. So we have now received all $6,048,046.16 of that fund. We continue, $1 million of that has been appropriated. Balance of the money, well, all of it's appropriated. $5 million that was appropriated since we have not moved forward so far. The project, we continue to leave that in the bank, earning interest as the fees go up. So, and the ARPA rules say that does not need to be shared, so that is some money the town's allowed to keep. And then the last thing is I will just mention, we have the VNA revenue as we look at each time. The VNA revenue now, having had a good September, after having a little bit down in July and August, is pretty close in line with last year's number. Suggesting last year is the bellwether we're trying to go after, but at least it's called back to last year's level. There are efforts underway to continue a lot of marketing efforts to try to improve the top line. The numbers kind of speak for themselves.
I have some questions on this. How many, I mean, they take people from out of town. Correct? Okay, well, where do they get the authority to do that?
Well,
The charter specifically says town of Berlin.
they work
Not
technically they
anywhere
work
else.
under the guidance of the VNA board. And they work ultimately as employees of town, so that all of us as employees work for the town manager. I can tell you
Their
that
board has
But the
no
town manager doesn't have any
authorization
authority
to
over
override
outside of
charter.
the charter. Either does the town manager.
I don't believe the charter precludes them from going downtown. It says it shall provide the service to residents. I don't believe there's any charter that precludes them from doing it.
Here's the thing, it's one of the first questions I asked too. About a third of the revenues come from other towns. Right. So your cost structure is still in place. If you don't get the 1/3, your revenue number is going to be lower. It's
Right.
just filling, like in the classroom.
This is why it's so critical to make these changes to the charter.
Yeah, but the expense would also be a third less.
No,
No, yeah, fixed, a lot of things is fixed,
a lot of fixed stuff.
a lot of fixed cost in there.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
If we don't do out of town, and in reality, the charter says it provides services to the town of Berlin. So if the matter was to be pushed, it could be a problem. So we have got to get the charter changed.
They did come to us, I mean, what are we going, 5, 6 years now?
It's been a
The
while.
first year I was on the Board of Finance, we had meetings, and that was one of the things that they said right off, that it we'll take people from anywhere because we have to go out to we have capacity. All right, in order to generate more revenue, they needed to go beyond Burlington to get more people to generate more revenue. But we've seen from the consultant that they hired that more patients is not always the answer. It's what type of patient are you servicing? And the other thing that the consultant noted is that we have a tendency here to over provide services.
Yeah.
okay, and. You know, I mean, that all goes
I
to
was
the
around for
management,
those.
yeah, that all goes to the management, of this too, I mean.
Well, in fairness, that study was done before the current manager's in place, and she has been very open about the fact that patients were being held longer, on the idea that the
Yeah.
census was the key number. We used to, probably 2 years ago now, I used to come in every month and give you what the census numbers were. And I stopped providing that because it's not really a valuable metric, more about the quality of the census. Basically, the way the Medicare model changed, it's about servicing clients and keeping a patient longer and actually hurt rather than help. You're left with a certain amount of money, and that reimbursement decline over time if you're just continuing to deal with the same thing. So part of that was the new director coming in and educating the entire workforce there to understand how that model works.
But isn't it amazing that we've been complaining about this stuff for 5 years and it's taken 3 directors now for someone to recognize that they can do something?
So to be fair.
I mean, I just,
Yeah.
I don't believe any of it.
If I may, a couple of years ago, the Medicare reimbursement model changed as well. So at the beginning, they would tell you for your X condition, you're getting this much, that you visit once or 15 times. In the past, before that, you got trickle down money so that people kept them. So look, the things are changing as we speak, but the newer model is, get to the patient, fix them, get out of that. It's not a lifetime membership. So.
So I guess to Tim's point, and I'll take the Board of Finance hat off and put my rural and citizen taxpayer hat on. A third of the revenue comes from other towns. Okay, revenue doesn't mean a thing, really. It's money in, not balanced off by money out type of deal. It's profit that makes a difference. So how do we know that this is actually helping the equation? If you can show me that this is actually offsetting some of that $800,000 that we lose every year, then okay, it's probably a good thing. But if you can't show me that, you don't know that, then I don't know whether this is a good thing or not. Can they show us that? That their cost of service for these 1/3 is less, so probably substantially less, or at least significantly less than the revenue they're bringing in.
I don't.
Otherwise, I'm subsidizing other towns.
Well, I don't.
That should be the charge to them to prove to us that that's what's going on, from my
The
perspective.
type of reimbursement, type of patient is going to drive it, not the geography. So I don't think anybody can tell you that if a patient we take from Britain would be more or less profitable, because if they're coming in from, I don't know, pick Aetna's health insurance versus say United, which reimburses at a lower rate. And if their condition is more of a quick.
Okay, none of that matters. The issue is, you're patient number one, they take you from New Britain. Did they make money on you or not? You, however many they did, each individual case, okay? That's what I would want to be concerned. I want to know if I'm subsidizing healthcare in other towns. And if you don't know whether we're making money off that. We used to have a group in Northeast Utilities. It was a unregulated business, and their metric was revenue. Their revenue was out of sight, and they lost money every single year because they were underselling their product or underpricing their product. Are we underpricing the product here in order to at least make it break even? And even if it is break even, is that a business we want to be in? We're still taking overhead from town resources to orchestrate this too. There is some part of that fixed cost to orchestrate.
Pricing is not determined by us, it's all determined by
I know.
Medicare.
And the answer
Medicaid.
to your question is coming up in November. Is this a business you want to be in? I mean, the voters are going to have an opportunity.
But I think, Kevin, it's not really hard to separate. Here's the revenue and cost, plus a portion of the fixed variable cost, plus a
Right.
portion of the fixed cost to go to out of town people versus grown people, so we get somewhat of an understanding, even though you may have a little judgment in the thought. We should know that.
But there really is very little variable cost in this,
Okay, but-
in this entire.
Okay,
business
then
model.
what fixed cost gets applied to the out of town versus the Berlin?
But in that instance, if I strip out the revenue, I mean, it's a fixed cost coverage model versus a margin model. If my fixed cost, if we're not changing the fixed cost, then getting that revenue, if I'm going to spend $1 million, am I better off saying $500,000 worth of revenue or $600,000 worth? There's essentially no
It all
difference in the
depends on
cost.
Well, but that's variable cost, 500 versus 600.
No, that's variable. Revenue. I'm saying if the cost is
So-
fixed, you have essentially, you essentially have employees. You have salaries with very little overtime or excess. There's a modest amount of mileage and some others in there. Really, what you have is, our challenge is it's a heavily fixed model.
So I get, if they're doing a third of their patients out of town and they stop that, we need a third less manpower.
That would be the different question, is should we be going out of town or should you shrink the model? We have talked about this. I mean, we have spoken with the folks in Westbrook because Westbrook's model is smaller number of people, hyper focus on Westbrook. And it's a much lower cost model.
Well, based on the fact that we know the town charter says is to provide a service to the town of Berlin, and we know it's losing $600,000 to $1 million a year. And we know that the town of Berlin's residents are subsidizing out of town healthcare. These are all facts. Shouldn't we be making a smaller model that even if it loses 300,000 is better off for the town of Berlin? Because if this charter thing doesn't go through, there's no way to fix this.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying rather than,
Except shrinking. Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying, is you're talking about the revenue and what you're really doing is the goal of going out of town was to generate additional revenue while holding the fixed cost model constant. You could argue that experiment, that effort has not
Well, I mean,
yielded the result.
it's your comment based thing that one of the reasons they wanted to do that is because they had bandwidth, they had people on the bench. Well, why are we paying people on the bench, you know? If they,
And
if
2
they
years
don't
ago-
have a sustained load to need that many people, that's like me employing 10 people, but I only have 7 people's worth of work. I'm gonna be out of business pretty soon if
I
I
hear
don't
what
change
you're
that
saying.
model.
And 2 years ago, 3 positions were eliminated in an effort to bring it down to a more, the goal was a more sustainable model.
That's why it's not 900, it's 700.
But you don't make that change and then switch 2 months later because you're not seeing immediate results. But I mean, we literally look at the P and Ls every single month. It's not lost. The question becomes, at what point do you
I
decide to make another reduction?
still think we're operating outside of the charter. So that's a whole nother issue. We'll have to check with the town attorney on. But I mean, there's this push to make this VNA thing not go through. And I'm telling you, these people don't understand what's gonna happen. It's gonna shrink it. If anybody kills the VNA, it's gonna be the people that are fighting to not kill the VNA. With their signs, they don't know what the hell they're
There's
signing.
unintended consequences of
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Because that's what brought it to my attention. I read the charter and I went, wait a minute. This thing says plain as day that it's only to be offered to the town of Berlin. So there's a third of our, right off the top, okay, we're gonna play it that way. There goes 1/3 of your revenue.
Well, you'd have to want the cost, really.
Well,
Well, I mean, that's
There is
the
no
other
revenue,
part of the
excuse me.
equation. We're not arguing the people that were sort of pushing for this charter change. We're not pushing for them to not be here any longer at all, or not be even staffed where they are. We're looking for a forensic way to go see if we can drive some costs out of this equation, if we can partner with other agencies. Is there a better way, better mousetrap out there somewhere, but where we can still keep the high level of service to the town of Berlin?
that's, I don't have a problem with working outside of it. But that's not what the charter says, and there seems to be people that want to hold the town's nose to the charter on every little thing, except this. So let's do it through everything. Okay, so the charter says town of Berlin. That's town of Berlin. You don't want to change the charter? You just cut the VNA in half. Congratulations.
And the other
Here's where we're
question
at.
that's being asked by a lot of people is,
Well, I'm not arguing.
No, I know. The state's got we only get to do this once a month, so I gotta get it all out.
We're expressing ourselves.
I'm not trying to defend or.
No, I understand.
Whatever. That's where we'll go.
And the other thing that nobody really truly understands is. We know they're servicing some level, and you said a third, but nobody has a clue as to how many clients they even service in the course of a year for $1.6 million. So it would be interesting to know that too.
Yeah, they have to know.
Well, it'd be nice to, somebody said, you know, the speculation's all over the place. Oh, they only did 40 clients last year for $1.6 million. That's what's floating around out there. I'm sure it's not true because it's too much money.
And then I've heard
They have an
200 a
idea.
month, and I know that's not
No,
true
We
either.
have that. information.
We have that?
Yeah. It's been in the 60s to 70s.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
That's, it dropped on COVID into the
Yeah,
30s,
that's not how
40s.
many individual, clients you have through the year. That's a good.
The last month alone, in the census around 40 something, the head count that we treated were over 60. I just know for a fact.
Okay.
So, I mean, it keeps changing every month, you know.
I'd like you, I'd like to know how many individual clients are, I want to know that we saw this one 15 times.
Right,
How
right.
many individual people are we seeing and how many of those are Berlin or not?
Because this is supposed to be being perceived as a tremendous asset to the town of Berlin.
Southern.
Less than 0.5% of the people
Yeah,
are
First
state
Bank,
mandated.
it's Rocky Hill.
And there's a whole other issue about who they're competing with, but
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be in the healthcare business, we have to ask the questions. Who are the people? Who are the patients? And I did ask, and she agreed, the director, to join your meeting probably in January, like last year, trying to get people in here and ask the question. I mean, we see it every month, like the director is both a healthcare professional and living this soup to nuts, day to day. I mean, this is what she does every day. So the goal is to bring the folks in. If there are other folks you would like to see or hear from before the budget, because that's an opportunity. Once you get the budget in March, there's only so many people, so many questions to ask, being able to do it. BNA was one that seemed clear to bring in and give you a chance to talk to the expert. And if there's others, happy to ask
I
anybody.
just remember her talking to the town council meeting, and it really pissed me off, plain and simple. Where she's comparing the VNA to the library, the police department, the town garage. You guys lose $1 million a year above your budget.
The part they got.
You know, really, seriously. The library doesn't lose $1 million above their budget. The police department does.
Okay,
So,
correct. They are not losing, they're not going over their budget, they're staying within their budget. That's the whole problem with the DNA board. They didn't think that they were doing something wrong. The budget is set up to lose 900,000, 900,000.
but it's the same as losing it.
No,
You're not doing the same thing. It's not the same as the police department and the library and everybody else.
police
don't
is
they
set
have a
up.
revenue target? Offsetting like the golf course?
Yeah, that's the only one. One of the only ones.
Well, it's the same kind of model,
But
isn't
the
it?
library does not have.
I know the
revenue
library
model.
doesn't,
So same with public works, they don't underwrite all their costs.
but that's,
But they're not
they're not
charging for
charging for the
services.
services.
You're not comparing apples to
I know
apples.
that. But I'm just trying to,
So,
I see how to vote. I see how to vote.
so,
I see how to vote.
I mean, just the follow-up, Kevin. Well, just the follow-up, can we have, say, last year, understand not just the census, but the total number of people by month, and we service?
you can have anything you want, they'll just ask the information, you get it, yeah.
Yeah, we gotta ask that in a very specific way, because even if you said how many people did you see, individual people did you see this month? Well, when you get the next month, you don't want to duplicate someone you had the prior month. I want to know how many patients.
I think good way to look at it, look at a whole year and say, how many people did you see?
Individuals.
Total.
Separate individuals per year.
Like injuries versus illness, and separate Berlin from other towns.
Right.
Well, and if Mr. Jones is on this month, he's not on next month too.
Right.
So he doesn't count twice.
That's what I mean.
I mean, we want them to exist, and we really do. But I think, at the end of the day, there's more flexibility if there's a charter change. We can work with them, and as George said, there's not a charter change, we have to say, this is it, and it's gonna be harder. And so, and people out there are saying, vote no, you know.
Taking numbers.
My favorite is save the DNA.
Save the DNA.
Shake the DNA.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. If you have a motion to adjourn.
I love this.
Second.
Okay, we're on.
Aye.
Well, Jerry, we've been doing this longer than all you guys. Do you think a small town being a